Yeah, exactly.
I feel like just bring this stuff.
At this time, I'll call the meeting in the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item would be the presentation from the Marshall Baseball Association for the Legion Field improvements. I'll call on Preston Stensrud, Park Superintendent, to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Real quick tonight, nothing formal, but just wanted to recognize the Marshall Baseball Association. And tonight with us, we do have Kelly Lofts, President of the association, for their continued support in the improvements we've been making to Legion Field, and we continue to make to Legion Field. Earlier this year, in January, they gave us another $35,000 donation, bringing their total up to $135,000 in the last 3 years to do the, like I said, the continued improvements. They've been received very well from the public. The first phase that we got done, it's actually game tonight and a couple tomorrow. Nice weather, so if anyone's around, stop down and check it out. Certainly enhance the experience, not only from the players with the new dugout, but the spectators as well. And we look forward to our continued partnership with Marshall Baseball and moving forward on the next phases of the improvements. So just really wanted to give a public thank you to the Marshall Baseball Association. So.
Thank you, Preston. Kelly?
I'll just take a few minutes. Thanks, Preston and Council and Mayor. Again, from the Marshall Baseball Association, we appreciate all the support from the city and to continue to make Legion Field a great place to play baseball. And you know, it's used for various things, obviously, not only baseball, but people walking through in the park. And it's a great spot for people to gather and enjoy our city. But for the baseball side of things, so far, the dugout's been received very well. It's big, spacious. I can't wait to get to third base done. The backstop, the netting has been an incredible improvement just to watch the games, and then our webcasting, not only from the city of Marshall that Alex has done, but we use for SMSU with the webcast behind home plate. The netting is just so much easier to see, but it's a great start to just continue to get that field to a great park, and we appreciate the city's support, and we appreciate everyone helping with our Marshall Baseball Association and with our Marshall A's, and continue to help out with our baseball in our city, and we are glad to keep supporting the best way we can, and we'll try to keep doing that here for future. So again, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and thank you to the entire association. It's been a great partnership, and it's really one of those amenities that is really important for the city, so thank you. Let's all thank.
Now, just one last thing to mention. We tried a few years ago getting the state amateur tournament. That's something that maybe we want to continue to look to do that. That'd be a huge tournament to get 3 weekends, the last 2 weekends in August and Labor Day weekend. We haven't any plans yet to get another plan together to put in a bid to host in a few years. That's about 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the road. But continuing to do improvements to Legion Field in various ways would help to continue to do that and maybe get another bid forward in a few years. So
very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
We'll move on to the next item, which would be to consider the approval of the minutes of the meetings that were held on April 8th and April 14th. The council does have the minutes. Are there any corrections? If not, under one motion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Jim, to approve the minutes from April 8th and April 14th. We'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to the public hearing. This is a public hearing on the South Whitney Street reconstruction project from East College Drive to Jean Avenue. So there'll be a public hearing on the assessment. Following the conclusion of the public hearing, then we would consider the resolution that would adopt the assessment. Jason, I'll call on you. Jason Anderson, City Engineer, Director of Public Works to conduct this public hearing. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. So this was the reconstruction of Whitney, as you mentioned, from College to Jean last summer. Total project cost came in at $1,864,992. Costs were shared in accordance with our special assessment policy amongst the wastewater fund, MMU, the surface water fund, city marshal, and the property owners through assessments. The wastewater fund picked up 19.5% of those costs, MMU 23.9%, the surface water utility 16.4%, 25.3% for the city marshal, and 14.9% of project costs were assessed to property owners. Per the fee schedule, the assessment interest rate is calculated as 2% over our bonded rate, so we've got 5.07% interest payable over 8 years for the assessments on this project. The assessment roll in its entirety is included in the council packet for your review. City staff would recommend that we move forward with the resolution to approve these assessments.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. As part of the public hearing, we'll open up for public comment for anyone who is impacted by this project and the assessment. So, and Steve, you can go first. I need to have you come up and use the microphone, and then just for the record, your name and address. So.
Steve Klein, 401 Charles Avenue. We are on the corner of Charles and Whitney. I consider myself an engaged citizen, and when they called for hearings on this project back in 2022, I attended them all, which were over at the meeting room at the utilities office. And naturally, the question of costs came up every time. And every time we were told the same thing, that there may be a variance depending on addresses and what specific work was done, if there was extra work on the specific address or not. But the maximum that any resident would have to pay was $5,500. I have it in my notes, and I'm expecting that to be the assessment that I'm going to pay.
Jason, you want to address that?
Sure. We do try to make it very clear at these informational meetings that the maximum that we state is for street assessment costs. The street assessment costs include sidewalk, curb and gutter, and the street itself. Additional costs on top of that are sanitary sewer service line costs and any private sidewalk costs that, like for the private sidewalk that lead up to your home, or in the case of your property, there was also a sump pump connection to a catch basin on the corner that was reconnected. There was a slight cost for that. The $5,500 would have likely, I don't remember what we said exactly at that time, but that would have likely been the fee schedule maximum for the street assessment at that time. It was since adjusted, it's $5,850. On your property, I think there was some minor costs for maybe sidewalk, walk up. I'd have to look it up here. But there's a few extra costs. But the big one, in addition to that street maximum, is your private sanitary sewer service line that leads from your home out to the main. That's where the bulk of that cost comes from, over and above the $5,850. Does that help address the question?
At no time was I told there was going to be an additional cost for this extra drainage thing, and everybody in the neighborhood is expecting this $5,500 maximum. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anyone else here that wishes to be part of the public hearing? Any input from the council as part of the public hearing?
Just as kind of a feedback in a general statement, Steve, and to anyone else that's concerned about the assessments, is that and I've been on the council for over 11 years, and the standard is always that the maximum is for the street, curb gutter, and the boulevard sidewalk. The sewer connections have always been property owner assessed. The property owner owns the sanitary sewer to the connect at the main, and driveways above a certain width, and then private sidewalks.
And that
I'm
conversation.
going to interrupt here. The private sidewalk would be like the walk-up.
Walk up at a right angle to the street that would walk up and connect to access your house. That at every public hearing, and I don't go to all of them, I try to go to the ones that affect, my ward. But that conversation has been universal at all of them. I don't know specifically, Steve, about the meeting that you were at, but that has always been the standard conveyance of information about how the assessments and additional charges would work.
The only comment I would add to that is that it is a good idea to replace your private service line.
Absolutely.
At that time when all this construction is going on. So.
But even so, if it's a total reconstruct on the street, even if you don't go past the city right-of-way, you're still assessed that sewer line charge to your wherever you decide to stop on your personal line, correct?
Right, we assess from the main up to the property line. And then
Right.
if you have work done on your own property, we keep that out of the contract, and that's between
Yes.
the contractor and the property owner.
But on total reconstruct on a street, those private sanitary lines are always replaced under the street and in the public right-of-way. So that's typically a universal charge that's above and beyond our assessed maximum.
Yes.
I apologize if that was misunderstood. I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's not something new. That is typically conveyed at all the public hearings that I've sat on. Those are pretty universally transmitted to the prospective property owners.
Any other comments or input from the council? Before we close the public hearing, you folks in the back, are you here for the public hearing?
We're just here to learn, but yes, we're part of that street. region,
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Do you have any specific questions that you want to ask or?
nothing in particular, I guess, it's just clarity on basically the whole charge for it. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
And along those lines, I don't know if you picked up when Jason was describing that there's two options. You can pay the assessment up front, or you can make it in 8 years of installments at 2% over what our bond is, and it's just a little over 5% if you need to pay it through your annual tax bill.
That's automatically going to be assessed to the property tax.
It would be added if you didn't pay up front, yes.
And I know Jason or your staff would be available to visit with you if you have any questions down the road too.
Yep, certainly. Sometimes people give us a call or stop in and we go through it.
Yep.
And even if you did that on the taxes for a portion of a time, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, you can always pay off whatever the remaining is and, work that way. So it's one way to try to soften the pain of having those improvements.
Is there any other input as part of this public hearing? Is there a motion?
When were they notified of this? Just, I'm late to the game possibly.
So let's see. I don't remember the exact dates, but typically, so this was a 2024 construction project. So typically in winter of 24 or even late fall or winter of 23, we have a public informational meeting when we invite the property owners to the council chambers, or MMU in this case, and we meet with all the functional groups, MMU's there, the city's there. We talk through the project and what we're doing and why. Then they get notified again of a hearing on the improvement that's actually before the city council, and that's a council item. And then we do construction, and our old practice used to be to assess in the same calendar year in the fall, but the new practice has been to make sure all the costs are in, the project is complete, and then we do the assessments at a time like this. So these assessments are not actually due and payable until 2026. If you want to pay them off with no interest, you need to pay them off within 30 days of this hearing. If you desire for them to go on your taxes and pay them over time, they start becoming due in 2026. So we try to build in that lag for people to have some time to prepare themselves. One thing I didn't point out about the cost participation, there was a recent amendment to the special assessment policy a few years ago, and Councilman Schaefer and Mayor Burns alluded to it. With driveways, on this particular project, I'm not sure if there's any driveway assessments because the driveways are all 12 feet wide or in that neighborhood. The city policy covers the first 12 feet of width with our reconstructs. That's different than it used to be. Any width in excess of that is assessed to the property owners as a
And then
benefit.
there's a maximum width too that we allow.
Correct.
And then the other amendment that was made some years after the original was to give a credit for those properties that are on a corner, so they don't get like double charged.
Right.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. That's pretty important on this project because there are some properties that are going to be within the property limits of this year's construction project on Minnesota Hill and Charles. So they're corner lots, and they were on the corner of Whitney and Charles, for example. Mr. Klein's property is one of them. There'll be a street credit applied to next year's assessment. The current policy has a 20-year look back on the street assessment portion, that 5850 that we talked about. So a credit will be applied to next year's assessment roll on properties where it's applicable.
And that's prorated based on that same maximum for property, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So if next year's policy has a maximum of $6,000, you could get a credit of $5,850.
Right.
So you get what you were assessed
What you
at.
spent, yep.
Okay, any other input? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the resolution that would adopt the assessment. Are there questions about that resolution? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll note the one abstention. We'll move on then to agenda item number 3. This is the Canoga Park Drive manhole refurbishing. Once again, Jason.
Actually, Mayor Burns will have Scott Trudson, our wastewater
Scott.
superintendent, present this one.
We'll welcome Scott Trudson from our wastewater department.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to talk to you a little bit about our manhole relining program that we have at the wastewater facility. Since 2018, we've been going after the worst manholes we have and relining them, restructuring them. We're getting close. We've got 2 yet that are in fairly bad condition. They're along Canoga Park Drive. And the hydrogen sulfide is what typically takes them out. And then that's a wet area. We get a lot of groundwater coming in. So we're trying to seal that up. We did get 2 quotes for that. These are, by the way, deep manholes. One's 19 feet deep, one's 16 feet deep. So it's more cost effective to fix the manholes than it is to replace it. 2 quotes. We got one from HydroClean, and basically they install an HDPE liner within the manhole, and then they pour concrete around it. So basically they're making a manhole inside the manhole, and then they have the HDPE material, which they weld. So it's a very good product. We did that in South Saratoga. We were very impressed with it. The second quote we got was from Vigisur. They have a slightly different system. Their system is more, they have to really do a good job of cleaning the manhole and then sealing the leaks. And then they come in, they put in they would do a woven fiberglass that they saturate and install them there. Between the 2 quotes, we're recommending the one from HydroClean as being the better option for us. So if you have any questions on that, we do have $90,000 budgeted for this, and the HydroClean came at $78,150.
Is this the portion of the of that gravity line where there's a dip also? Or
No, this is just on the 23 trunk line is what it
Right.
is. We've been following that trunk line, we've been jumping around a bit, just hitting the worst manholes.
Okay.
So
questions?
It's got 2 things. One is on the Vigisur method, is that the one where they actually do like the sling and it's almost like a 3D printer and they clock up the manhole with that?
no, what they do is the difference is in the prices. If we would have had a lot of manholes to do, Vigisur probably would have been more competitive, because they have 3 mobilizations involved. They got somebody that comes in and cleans it, then they got another team that comes in and seals it, And then they got a third team that comes in. It's basically a resin. How to describe it? It's basically woven fiberglass saturated with a membrane and resin, and then they just put that in and they expand it out.
Inflate it? Okay.
They inflate it, yep. And it's a good product. There's nothing wrong with the product. It's just to have them come and do just 2 manholes is not cost effective for us.
That's kind of like when they do the inflating and they slip line.
Just like for lines. Yep.
Okay, yep, got it.
So
I get a question also then on the HydroClean. What did you say their actual estimate? Because here I see 123,050. So is there 2 of these manholes they're not going to do, or is it?
Yes. We were trying to get 4 manholes done. But as you can see with the pricing, it just came over too much. It came to like $123,000.
Right, okay.
Plus there'd be some water, groundwater stoppage. So we decided to stop with the two worst ones. The other 2 aren't in real bad shape. We'll get them in the future.
Okay.
Any other questions for Scott? You have the recommendation?
I move we approve and do the recommended repairs on the 2 manholes on Canoga Drive.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion?
Craig, can you clarify which?
It's the HydroClean
Thank you.
proposal, and that we actually approve the recommended proposal.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Did you?
Yeah, I did. Because you said I was having issues too. I've been doing it every time.
Yeah.
But sometimes it comes back up. But
How do you vote on this motion?
yes,
Otherwise, we're going to have to short your per diem.
that's fine. But you said there was,
Well, no, we had to vote twice in that first vote.
okay, so I don't
that
know
was
then.
normal. Just click refresh on that.
Okay,
Okay.
so the
yes.
the
I'm a
motion
yes.
does pass. Thank you.
And vote off and down at that end.
We're not in Chicago.
We'll move along then to
Trying
the
to make
consent
minutes
agenda. We'll
again.
bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda this evening. They include consider the approval of a raffle permit for the Pride and Tiger Foundation. Consider the approval of the raffle permit for Marshall Area Fast Pitch Softball Association, the vacation of a utility easement in the Carr Subdivision 1, the receipt of the petition for the vacation and calling for the public hearing, the preliminary plat of the Carr Subdivision 4, the introduction of the preliminary plat of the Highway 23 Storage Edition, once again, the introduction of the preliminary plat, introduce the ordinance to rezone property located at 1301 Canoga Circle from B3 to R3, the preliminary plat of the Wilkie Miller Busing 6th Edition, introduction of the preliminary plat, introducing the amendments to Chapter 22-4, mobile food units and food carts, consider a temporary extension of the alcohol license area for Atlantic Place, consider the temporary extension of the alcohol license area for the Gambler and Fuzzies, the approval of the out-of-state travel for the liquor store manager, and authorize airfare to attend the Beverage Alcohol Retailers Conference in Annapolis, Maryland. Consider the approval to the amendment to a farm lease, and then finally consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. So is there any item on the consent agenda any member wants removed for separate discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 18. This is the main lift station renovation project. Consider the Bolton and Mink proposal for engineering services. Once again, I'll call on Scott Truittson from Wastewater.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We If you remember, a couple of years ago, we did the Highway 23 lift station, so we've got that all up and corrected. The main lift station is on Kossuth Avenue near Justice Park. It was put in service in 1972, so it's, 53 years old. It receives sanitary sewer from about 2/3 of Marshall. There is a diagram that shows the coverage area. Basically, it's functioning. It's not as efficient as it should be because those pumps have been rebuilt many times. We're looking to replace the pumps. There's 4 pumps and a wet well, dry well setup there. We'd like to replace those pumps. There's some check valves and things that need to be replaced. And there is still a submersible Cantex lift station that is south of there that we have used in the past, but we're not anymore. We'd like to get rid of that. It dates back to 1958. So our drawings from that system are very sketchy from the 70s, so we'd kind of like to get those updated too. So we're looking to do this in 2026. It's in our CIP for that, but the thought was if we could get going on the bidding and the design of this now, we'd maybe get better pricing next year. So we're looking at from Bolton and Mink a not to proceed hourly basis, not to exceed $47,000 for engineering services. We've got $60,000 budgeted in wastewater for engineering services. So,
Scott, the current lift station is, do you recall the depth of that, I'll call it tank that is down there?
I don't. It's 3 floors to get down there, and I would invite everybody in the council if they want to come and see it. We'd be more than happy to show it off. It's one of those things you look at it from outside. It's a small building, but it goes down deep. So
when I was first on the city council years ago, that was one of the tours that I took to go down in that main lift station. It is a long ways down. So
yes, it is. It is.
Now, this is the one that's kind of right over by the Public Works building, right?
Yes. Yep. Right off but Justice Park and Kossuth there. Yeah. And that was the original station until in '93 when the Highway 23 station went in.
Right, because at that time it was lifting to the ponds.
Well, this station always lifted to the wastewater plant.
Okay.
The one before, and you can kind of see it, it's a small little circular structure there to the right of the 18, or actually to the left of the 18. That is actually dates back to 1958, and that
lifted to the ponds.
That lifted to the ponds. And we have used that in the past, but it's beyond safe use now, and Roger and his team, our collection assistant superintendent, they've devised a way to do maintenance and cleaning without using that old station, which works very well. So,
okay. Good. Any other questions for Scott?
No, I'm just always supportive of making sure these lift stations work, because I can tell you the first house that this lift station backs up into if it does not work, and I used to live in that house. So I'm very supportive of making sure these always work.
Very good.
all right, thank you.
So you have the request for the proposal from Bolton and Mink. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. The motion does pass. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 19. This is the 25 to 2028 Township Fire Services Agreements. So with that, I'll call on Stephen Anderson, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back in January of this year, city staff met with representatives from the contracted townships to review the terms and payment amounts of the annual service agreement. Fire Chief Brunsvold at that meeting gave a presentation that highlighted the extensive training that our fire department uses and also the equipment and availability that they had. At that meeting, I explained the formula that was used to allocate the operational costs for the fire department. The formula that we use has been in place since 2012, so it was good time to take a look at the formula and have review with all the townships. After that meeting, there were several more meetings and discussions with the representatives, and out of those meetings, a new service amount and a new term was finally reached in March. The services provided by the fire department would remain the same. but we were changing the term to be a 3-year contract instead of an annual contract. But we would have an annual review to make sure that everything is still how everyone is anticipating it. The number of sections is also remaining the same from last year. The new payment amounts are listed on the memo there. These amounts would also be the amounts that the townships would be paying in 2026 and 2027 as well. And if there's any questions, I am available.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. And as Stephen has mentioned, Councilmember Schaefer and myself were also involved in those numerous meetings, and I think we came to a good solution. The reality is that with the township formula that came from the Township Association, it created some inequities between the townships and actually between the different fire departments that potentially could serve those areas. And I think everybody's interested in the quality and timeliness of the service, but they're also interested in kind of what their fiscal responsibility to their constituents are. So I think at the end of the day, we did come to a nice solution. So Craig, I don't know if you want to make any comments, or Quentin, if you want to make any comments at this time.
No, you did fine. I'll leave it alone.
Okay. Council have questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the 2025 to 2028 Township Fire Service Agreements?
I move approval of the agreements.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass.
I wish those meetings were this easy. I'll reserve comment. Thank you, Mr. Brunsvold, Chief.
Quentin, before you leave, do you want to introduce your mentor here?
Ouch.
He, I guess, is.
Does this raise?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a button right there. Yeah.
Okay, just like that, okay.
Get a lift.
Yes, this is Brady Dubs. Brady asked to job shadow me. I don't live or lead that exciting of a life or a job, but Brady was interested just in how the fire department operates and works. And I said, well, what a good opportunity to come stand in front of the council. So you may recognize the last name. This is the human resource manager's son, Sheila's son, Brady. So welcome to him. And we're going to go tour a few places tonight. He's not going to sit in my office and watch me do paperwork, but maybe we'll catch a run tonight or something. He can go on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to say anything, Brady?
I think I'm all right.
Okay. Welcome.
Awesome. Good job, Brady.
That's awesome.
Good job, Chief Brunsvold.
We'll move then to agenda item number 20, consider the resolution amending the special assessment policy for alley reconstruction methodology calculation and the cost split. So this relates to the special assessment policy. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. So the city marshal has numerous alleys in our city limits that are in poor condition. This amendment to this policy is something that was brought forward by city staff to the council because we're often reached out to about what we can do about the condition in the alleys. The existing special assessment policy leaves 100% of the cost of alley replacements and reconstructions onto the property owners. So this is a policy amendment that's being proposed to help split the costs between the property owners and the city marshal. Because this affects so many different things, policy, cost, and construction, we took it to every council committee to get input and work through it. After we worked through each committee, we ended with the policy that we're proposing, which is 50% cost participation between city and property owners in commercial areas, and 75-25, with 25% being the city cost in residential areas. The thought process behind that is that the commercial alleys are more frequently used by customers and the general public, and that warrants a little more cost participation as a primary route to a business for some businesses. In addition to that, it stated that there must be 75% petition by frontage in the alley to get the city's cost participation. And the city has the right to fit the project into the CIP. Just because we receive a petition doesn't mean we drop everything to do the project. It certainly has to meet the city council's budget goals, so it'll fit in where it fits. I can answer any questions if we have them, but that's what we would propose.
Okay. Any questions for Jason? Or any input from the various committees that have worked on this?
I don't have a question, but I have a couple comments. One is I'm really glad to see this come forward. I know we've, at PI&T, we've kicked this around a number of times. And just as a property owner, we've gone a couple swing attempts at redoing an alley in my neighborhood. And one of the things, I'd only want to offer this up just for thought, because I'm glad to see the city participation. There's a couple of kind of hidden things when we get to doing the alley projects, and like Jason alluded to it, in a number of the alleys, in the use, the way the alley's frequented either with garbage trucks or because of the importance of the alley for storm conveyance, a lot of times the preference would be concrete, and he alludes to that in the proposed ordinance change. That would require an inverted crown so that the stormwater would be conveyed down the center of the alley. Some of the complicating parts as you look at that, because we ran into this on our alley, because that is a substantial piece of that alley would be storm conveyance, is that when Marshall Municipal Utilities had the electrical lines buried, they ran through the alleys, and some of them may not be deep enough to facilitate. So there's going to be some complications that come forward in that about how that's cost shared. And I know how I feel on that. We won't have that conversation here now, but just know that as this comes forward, those are some items that as a council, we have to deal with. So by the city stepping up and taking 25% of that, there's also engineering costs, and there's going to be other costs that come in, and we need to be prepared to deal with those questions and kind of assist our citizens. I really support this. I think this is a really good idea. I'm also glad that we're helping the commercial areas. I know there's a couple of problem ones that have been kind of on our plate for about 6 or 7 years now, that there's just not quite enough, how should I say it? And there's not enough contributors to it. There's some really significant alleys that have only 1 or 2 owners, so it becomes almost cost prohibitive, but there's a serious need, and it has a lot of patron traffic for other businesses that wouldn't have to pay in it. So I'm really glad to see this formula, Jason. I think that, and to the other committees, that 50-50 with half being ad valorem is very equitable. And I think that it's going to improve our ability to maintain. Having those alleys, having had one paved and then been in areas where they're not paved, I think it's really in our best interest. And I think while it's not a direct stormwater impact, for our continued compliance with our MS4 stormwater program and all the rest of it, I think this is really a good step, and I think it'll improve a lot of the quality in the neighborhood. So that's all I have to add, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the soapbox.
Any other input?
Can I add just
Sharon?
one thing? Page 152 of the packet, and I know you can read it and you see it, but just to be clear, the city, if some city funding is available, the city may participate. I just want to be clear on that, because that was a big discussion among staff, and I know Eleanor as well, and Ways and Means, because of the pressures on levies and costs and finding the funding. So I just wanted to point that out. I know you can read that, but just to make sure it's clear.
And I think to be clear to the public that might be listening, Sharon, just to make sure we're clear, because that's a great point, is that everyone could be in favor of pushing this forward, but if there's not city funds going and it moves forward, there may not be the ad valorem participation. The project could still go forward, but you're not going to get that 25% from the city or 50%. With that, I move that we approve the resolution amending the special assessment policy related to alley reconstruction.
Motion by Craig, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by C. Discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move along then to agenda item number 21, Commission Board Liaison Reports. Craig?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Amanda.
I also have nothing.
Amanda.
Planning Commission met on many of the items on the consent agenda, which we'll address at the next meeting, I am sure. EDA met too. We got to hear from Dave Parsons. He presented to the whole board on the property assessment process, the state rules, his guidelines, and how he comes up with property values. It was a good use of time, and I think it's good for everybody to understand. So
Good. John?
Nothing.
See?
DEI Commission met last week. It was kind of a quiet meeting, so we've got some interviews coming up, so we're really excited about that. CVB, we voted to continue bringing the ice dogs to Marshall because it's a really fun family thing, and sometimes it brings people out of town, so we're really excited about that. And then the home show attendance, they had 2,158 attendees, and I was not one of them because we were out of town. We were really bummed about missing it. And then Adele Community Center just met this morning, and they're interviewing for a program specialist is it Jenna?
Jenny.
Jenny left. But I really wanted to highlight a partnership that they have with the Gambler. They were finding out that they didn't really have a lot of people coming to have lunch at the center. And so they partnered with the Gambler, and the Gambler can make up to 25 meals, and it's because they don't have a caterer's license, so they can only, their capacity is that. And they have offered the meals at a discounted rate, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield and Ameriprise had sponsored a month of it, so it made it even cheaper. But they have been sold out of their meals every Thursday, and so they're getting people that are regularly coming to have meals, and now there's more community at the centers. That was a really cool program that
So they bring the meals
Katie
over
joined.
to the center?
Yeah, so they have 2 people that will go over to the Gambler with the cart, and they'll pick up the meals.
Cool.
Yeah, because otherwise there was never anybody around there, and they're making the meals affordable. So if there's anybody out there that wants to sponsor these meals a month for the center, they'd love it. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. That's all I have.
Very good. Jim?
MMU met last Wednesday. I have their audit here. If anybody's bored and wants to read it, I actually find this stuff interesting. It was a good, clean audit. I'm still kind of catching up to speed about utilities, but it was a good, clean audit. We have a good power company that keeps our rates low, and they are slowly starting their search for a new director or manager. I don't know what Dave Shelfkop has referred as manager, director. So other than that, my other committees did not meet.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move along then to council member individual items. Jim, let's start at your end.
I'm going to go on my soapbox about people who are driving. Please look out for walkers. It's nice how people are walking. I myself am a big fella. You should be able to see me when I'm walking and not try to hit me with your car. I've seen a lot of people not paying attention. I just ask the drivers, please pay attention and look for your walkers and your bikers, especially the little ones. You do not want to hit a little kid or a big Jim. So I would appreciate that. So
okay,
that's all I have.
See?
Yeah, I was invited to attend the Hmong National Development Conference in Minneapolis last week. And it is celebrating 50 years since the first Hmong refugee settled here in America. So that was really cool. There were over 1,300 attendees. So I think I only saw maybe not even a dozen white people. So it was really different for me, surrounded all by Hmong people and some people that are just doing amazing things around the country. We had a lot of people from Fresno, and Governor Wells was there, and he told them, it's always this nice here in Minnesota, to the people from California. It was really neat. We had a banquet, and we honored our veterans who served in the Secret War, which a lot of people don't know about, but it was a war that was kind of fought on the side during the Vietnam War. And actually, it took quite a few years before those veterans were actually recognized by the government, the U.S. government. And then we also honored the nurses who worked during that time, too, because they were like 6 or 7 on stage, but some of them started working as nurses when they were 12, 13 years old because they wanted to help and see what they could do to help the community. So it was really cool, and I never cried so much at a banquet before. So really awesome that I was able to attend this, and it was made possible by the city. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. John?
Nothing.
Craig?
Kind of along Jim's lines of walkers, if you take your dog for a walk with you, make sure you bring some poo bags and use them. I'm very disappointed in the amount of uncollected dog treat or dog flares that I see along the sidewalks, and it's disappointing. I want to use the term disgusting, but I'll be nice and use it disappointing. If you're conscientious enough to walk your dog, pick up after it. I'm going to stop there.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I had a resident ask about getting a sign that says, pick up after your dog and putting it on her, because they live on a bike path. And I didn't know what the answer was for.
I know like my neighbor actually has one fronting on their porch, and it's a nice little, probably 5x6. And I think as long as you put it on your property, Stephen, I don't think we have an ordinance against that, do we?
As long as it's not on the right of way.
Right, yeah. Just put it on your property side of the sidewalk, and absolutely, I think you can.
There's a couple of nice examples on Windstar Street on the bike path along Windstar that the property owner put up.
Sure. Yeah, and you shouldn't have to tell people that. I mean, it's not that hard to do. I even teach my grandkids because I showed them the poop puppet and how he just loves those flares and just gets so full. So be creative. I mean, come on, people. Just if you are too good to pick up your poo, then I can't imagine what mindset. It's so disappointing. Very disappointing.
Amanda.
I got nothing.
And Amanda.
I have nothing either.
Very quickly, and Sharon, you can add to this, a quick legislative update. Of course, the Minnesota legislature went back into session today after the Easter Passover break. As the council knows, we have 3 specific items. There's a number of other items that affect cities in general, but there's 3 items that are specific to the city of Marshall. One is is in the tax committee. There's a request for us to be able to extend the unallocated use of TIF that had been identified following 2022. It would have to be utilized by the end of this year. We're asking for a 2-year extension. That is the dollars that would be applied that would support the application for the affordable housing project. So that request, Sharon and I testified about a week or so ago in front of the House Tax Committee, and prior to that, Lauren Deitz and I testified in front of the Senate Committee. I think that's how it went. So that is under consideration. Likely will go to conference committee and be part of the large tax bill, assuming, and there will be a tax bill this year. The second item is the request for legacy funds for cost participation on a replacement of the band shell. So Preston Stensrud and I testified at both the House and the Senate legacy committees. That will end up going to conference committee. The outcome is very uncertain there. And then the third request is for the expansion at the Merit Center for a couple additional project props, I'll call them. One is for the shooting range, and the other is for a prop on the burn side of it. So those bills have been entered in both the House and the Senate as requests. There has been no hearings for bonding proposals that have been heard at this time. And of course, it's very uncertain whether or not there will even be a bonding bill. There wasn't one last year. So this should be, hopefully there will be a bonding bill that will include this project this year. Sharon, do you have anything you want to add it?
If I recall correctly, the last day of the legislative session is May 19th.
Correct.
So we should find out very soon on a number of our legislative proposal, and it might be near the end, which is no surprise to most people who have been paying attention to how it works. So,
Bob, does it help to contact our local legislators at all on any of these projects, or is that not worth it?
So good point, Jim. Our local legislators, both Representative Swedzinski and Senator Dames, are sponsors of the bills, and so they are supportive, and they're also supportive. So they were right alongside us when we were testifying. They introduced the bills, so we have their support. Yes. With that, I'll move then to staff reports. Sharon?
I just want to add that the police department has been doing extra enforcement and presence around the school pedestrian crosswalks, and it has improved in those particular areas with people slowing down and stopping. They're still seeing a lot of distracted driving, but we've made some improvements with their presence. There's also been some increased social media on it as well. So good for the school to bring that up, which school administration did, and also our police department following up on that. So that's all I wanted to mention tonight.
Good. Any questions for Sharon?
Do you have any updates on the aquatic center?
You may have seen that the construction fencing was put up recently. They started to actually remove some of the trees. We're soon going to get more of a kind of project schedule, which includes, I want to talk about kind of some scheduled meetings with the aquatic center as well, so that you're in the loop with different stages of the project. So more to come on that, but really exciting to see some initial progress on the site.
Thank you.
And groundbreaking is May 2nd, Friday, May 2nd. That's the date, right?
For Highway 19.
Yes.
Yes.
So we broke ground on the
It would be on at the site there.
We can throw some aquatic center soil in there too and
It'll be at the site.
make it for both. So
I want to back up a little bit. In following up on Jim's, it also would be, we don't need to ask our local legislator for their support, but it would be appropriate to thank them for their support. And I should have mentioned, Marty Seifert has been helping on our behalf, and it's been very, very helpful. So.
Yeah, in the past, when we've gone down for some other projects, Marty has a very good rapport and is really, really good at making sure that our message gets to all the corners.
Right.
And it's appreciated.
Okay, Jason?
Thank you. A couple things that are coming up. On May 1st, we will be opening quotes for just a chain link fence replacement at the 4th Street culvert crossing near Marshall. That fence is kind of falling apart, and it's been, I think, a council wish list item for a little while. So that'll be hopefully getting good quotes on May 1st. Also on May 1st, we'll have bids come in for the chip seal project. College Drive project should start as early as May 5th. They'll start on the west side of town by the concrete plant and work towards the bridge by Legion Field Road. That'll be phase 1, and then after that, they'll jump to the second phase of the project, which is from the big intersection downtown here back to Greeley. So that's coming up as well. Looking forward to that kicking off. The Minnesota Hill Charles reconstruction project should start sometime mid to end of May, maybe as late as June. We're going to have a pre-construction meeting coming up on May 15th with the contractor. The SRE building's moving along nicely. It's starting to pick up steam now. The current schedule has us taking control and ownership of the building first or second week of July. So they're putting windows in, the garage doors are in, the upper mezzanine is in and poured. It's starting to really look like something now. So watching that move, and it's fun to watch. That's all I've got.
Very good. And I know we had a conversation yesterday that once it's complete and the equipment is actually in there, we might have a special tour for the council to see it. So.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if the council can come out and look and maybe do a greater airport tour as well. We could look at any number of things out there and have a good conversation.
Okay. Any questions for Jason? Do we have any input from the city attorney?
This is Ron Beatty with Kennedy and Graven. I'm substituting for Pam Whitmore, and I have nothing to contribute tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ron. The remaining items on the agenda you have before you, they include the information items, the Planning Commission minutes from April, our cash and investment reports, our building permits, and our listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything else to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Amanda. Discussion. All All those in favor say aye. Well, excuse me, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We are adjourned.